I'm gonna go through every aisle 8 times. You can play hide and seek.
Let me just see what it.
Yeah, buddy. Let's do it. Okay, guys, we're wrapping up the 2024 season. It's beginning to an end and an end of a beginning. So wanted to share with you guys my thoughts on wrapping up this entire year, as it's been a roller coaster of a year and a lot of things happened. And I think it's about time I share my perspective and thoughts on it. So don't mind me if I reference my phone a few times. I have a ton of notes, a ton of things I want to share with you guys. I don't want to make sure I don't forget any of the important details. Okay, so 2024 started at Wodapalooza. This was my 4th time doing Wodapalooza. It was my first time doing a 4-day competition because I got cut from the games the year before and only had 3 days. So I did 2 days individual, 2 days with a team. Really lit my fire. I felt like this was the first time I was not just competing with the big dogs who I always looked up to, but I was actually able to beat them, and I had that mentality too. CrossFit's a huge mentality shift when you're in there competing with other people. If you believe you're gonna beat them, you're gonna have a lot better shot at doing it. So it was the first time I had that mental shift, and I felt it. So I came out of that competition feeling really good about what was to come this year, and I had a special feeling about what 2024 was gonna entail. Got into a great month of training. I would say February was one of my best months of training I had. It was well put together, no missed days, no missed pieces, really no travel, just really raw, intentional training where I felt like I was becoming very lethal, and I wanted to continue on that. You know, I started in a new environment last year, which was 2023, end of 2023, and it was starting to become home in the beginning of 2024. I really felt in February that I established myself in this new gym in Liberty Lake, Washington, Launch Mode CrossFit. That was a big mark in February. I felt I was becoming native to this place where I didn't feel as native before, and started to build this amazing community. So going into March, iron was hot. Felt really good about it. And March was where it started to get really crazy. I suddenly started dealing with some really debilitating hip pain. And this hip pain is still there today, but it's dulled out a lot. So I came down with disease, and I call it a disease, I don't know why, called myositis ossificans. It's like a condition where you get a big contusion, and I don't even know what kind of contusion I got. That's why I'm so confused how it happened. You get a big contusion, get a big blood buildup in your muscle, and then all of a sudden it doesn't stop and it ends up calcifying. So big bone in my hip here, very obstructive, as you can imagine, not fun, very painful. And I could not do a lot of things. There was weeks and weeks of no legs, no weight bearing on the hips. When I would try to do these things, it was really hard. So I went through that in March, I ended up having a good open because I was able to make it through without the hip letting up too much. And then it started to get really bad right after the open. And so I competed my 8th official open this year. In the CrossFit Games season, which was really cool. With rest and a ton of precaution, I was able to make it through the open, and I was very careful with the hip. It was a mentally very tough time going into April because the thought of quarterfinals and having an actual season really haunted me. Mentally, it was a period of doubt, and I really just didn't know what was going to happen. I had to really lean into my faith and realize, like, if this season's not in God's will, it can't be in mine either. And I just need to shift my perspective. So I prayed a lot for a miracle, and a miracle happened. My hip somehow was able to make it through quarterfinals, even though I felt like a shell of myself in quarterfinals. It was not who I wanted to be, how I wanted to compete. Still had a couple of finishes that didn't relate to the hip because I didn't need it as much, but I felt like I was able to manage. and make it through to the next stage. And I just thought, if I can make it through the next stage, I'm gonna have another 5-6 weeks to heal up for semifinals. So I started building momentum again early May. And this was that time where everyone's staying a little secretive. It's semifinals, you're trying to qualify for the games. You know, you're sizing people up a lot. It's that time of the season. And these workouts get released plenty early for us for semifinals, so we had lots of time to practice them. And I just remember practicing a version of each one multiple times, even though we were one of the first weeks. I think we were week 2 in the West Coast. And yeah, the semifinals were gearing me up for something I was not expecting. And it absolutely was a huge stepping stone again. Just like Wodapalooza, I gained another sense of confidence. It was actually my first podium as an individual. My first big boy podium. You know, I've podiumed at other smaller competitions, but a CrossFit sanctioned event, and it was pretty freaking cool. So I was able to pull out a 3rd place at the West Coast Classic and beat some top names, which felt really encouraging and built some great confidence. At the same time, I wasn't mentally or physically completely prepared yet. My hip was, I'd say 75% at that point. Still lots of limitations. I remember there being a heavy snatch workout where, you know, I just couldn't get into a good position because my hip was so limiting with my mobility. It really made me lean into one side, and I was just missing snatches left and right. And somehow on the competition floor, made it happen. Don't ask me how, but I'll say it's God's strength. I get home from semifinals, obviously off an extreme high, and boom, we're back into the roller coaster. I start feeling some extreme knee pain, and this knee pain essentially locked up my knee anytime that I would start doing any kind of movement or flexion. And I started to realize, I'm like, wow, I can't do any lower body anymore. So that was the beginning of games training. Lasted about 3 weeks in my left patella. And it was a really difficult time, again, because I thought that was going to define my entire games prep. Was it's going to be 2 months of fighting through pain, and not figurative pain, but like not figurative pain, but literal pain and like a joint that I cannot like just magically heal. Like soreness, CrossFitters are so good at fighting through soreness. We could be destroyed and every muscle in our body is about to hit rhabdo, and we'll keep going. But there's certain things you can't keep going with that just stop you because your body, its signal with pain is to stop you. So feeling this knee joint, like it was really weird. I could not run, squat, lunge, jump, all the things again. It would just spaz out and I'd lock up and sometimes I'd fall over. It was actually pretty embarrassing. So I wasn't determined. I was super determined to not let that define me in my prep. So I got back end of June. I was starting to feel a little bit better. I was starting to hit some traditional movements again, being able to, you know, be an athlete, use my full body. I got back in, I hit a reps ahead battle. I went in with that mentality of just like, go do something special here. And I know I competed a month before at West Coast, but it's crazy how quick after an injury you can lose confidence in what you can do. And I just need to trust, like all my fitness was still there. I just need my knee to work. So my knee started working. I went and took a pretty great victory in June, in reps ahead, end of June, once the knee started feeling better. And that was all I needed to start the runway to what was to come in August in Texas. You know, to this day, it doesn't bother me in that same spot, which is pretty cool. But July was really cool. I'm a big summer guy. I love the sunshine, so I thrive in the sunshine. Obviously, I got to get outdoors a lot. I got to do so much with friends and community. I had some awesome people come out and join, including Aaron and Johnny. They videoed a week, so if you haven't checked out that video, Road to the Games, that was my July month of training, essentially, wrapped up into 1 week. You know, I had a lot of fun. I was able to balance the games training very well and not feel like I was a slave to it. I feel like a lot of people go into games training just like, uh-oh, here we go. And obviously it's hard, and obviously you put in a lot of hours, and it's a lot of suffering, but if you can find a way to just enjoy yourself and make it fun, you know, I could have done another month of it. Maybe my body-wise, I couldn't have done another month in a row, but mentally I was very good. And I think that's a huge reason we ran into August going strong, is I was just having fun. I was just doing James, having a good time. Let's talk about August. Very wild month. Very wild month. So I would even call it maybe the wildest month of my life. And I don't know if I'll ever have a wilder month in my life, because the raw emotional differences. You know, there was the highest highs, and for me, there was also like the lowest lows. Like, so from the highs of winning and getting married to the love of my life, to the death of a competitor, and actually my uncle. Well, a lot of people don't know that my uncle passed right before the games too, which was he was probably my closest uncle, and just a guy I loved very much and looked up to. And I actually wasn't even able to be at his funeral because it was during the Rogue, which was heartbreaking. But yeah, it was a very interesting emotional balance. I didn't know how to process the highs, and I didn't know how to process the lows because I was feeling both at the same time. So it was a really weird time, and I think a lot of people saw my performance and thought I was numb to everything that was going on. And in reality, it was actually really hard. It was a hard time. I felt a lot of the time like I couldn't step out on the floor, and it was just becoming too much. I think a lot of competitors face this, but one thing I knew that kept me going was I knew Lazard had faith. And for me, that was the biggest determinant that, you know, he's dancing above us in heaven, and being able to just compete for his glory and compete knowing that, you know, he's in a better place. For me, my faith was everything in making my decision. And I know some people may call that ignorant. Some people may call that selfish. But for me, it felt like the best way to honor him. And also my uncle, who I wanted to commit the games to, and my family. And, you know, there's a lot of personal reasons I competed. You know, for me, the CrossFit Games at the time was my way to make money. I wasn't bringing in the best sponsor income for a CrossFit Games athlete. I wasn't, you know, feeling like I was able to provide for my new wife and do all the things we wanted to do. So for me, this games was, you know, there's some financial reasoning behind it too. I have a family to provide for, and this is my way of doing it. I knew that I felt a sense of peace with stepping on that floor each time, knowing like, hey, Lazar had faith in Christ. He's dancing above us. I'm representing something bigger than myself with my performance. It was an endeavor that I wanted to glorify God with. There's nothing in this world that can fill you, even winning the CrossFit Games. I thought as a kid that winning the CrossFit Games would just change my life forever, that everything would just be lollipops and rainbows and sunshine, and there would never be a dull moment after winning the CrossFit Games, just endless amounts of opportunity, which, you know, there was some great moments from it, but not at the cost of the life of someone. Like they're not even comparable. So like I said earlier, it was really tainted winning, and the only way I felt like I could accept that I had a title that was prestigious and world class was, you know, being able to just say thank you to Lazar for all he'd done to shape our sport, and you know, everything he'd done to make competitors feel seen and laugh and cherished. And you know, I didn't know him that well. Being honest, I had a few interactions with him, which were all happy and sunshine, and he was just a light, and that's how I'll remember him, as a fierce competitor that always shined his light on people. Yeah, also understanding everyone watching this, like I understand this might not be your view, and that's completely okay, but I just wanted to share my story and put it out publicly, like why I did what I did. So the end result of the games is still mesmerizing to me. Obviously, coming out first place at the CrossFit Games, you can call me the fittest man on earth, you can call me not the fittest man on earth, I don't care. I won the CrossFit Games. It was a very cool experience. And I felt this sense of, it was a step in the right direction. It was by no means the end result, and by no means was it, you know, the complete satisfying CrossFit Games win that I wanted. It still stung. It still sucked. It was tainted. And there's nothing anyone could have done to change that. It's just how it was. But it was weird because I didn't expect 2024 to be my year. I believe deep down in my heart that one day I could be a champion. One day I would stand on top. But by no means would I have put money on 2024. I had a lot of development to do. I knew I had home run hits, but at the end of the day, I've heard a lot of people talk about like how podiuming is fitness, but winning the games also takes a little bit of luck. And I'm not gonna say it was luck. I'm gonna say that I had God's hand on my performance the whole time. And for me, I just believe that like he wanted me up there. He needed me up there to share his name in a dark time and bring, you know, somewhat a little bit of light to a dark situation, because I think a lot of people were mourning and hurting as they should be. Some may say the programming was biased and not a good test. To that, you're gonna be surprised. I'll say I agree. There were things missing, but I knew that for sure I came a long way. And in my performances and in my training and the kind of athlete I was. So getting married in the honeymoon after the games were absolutely the best weeks of my life. It was the mental time off of the sport I needed and the roller coaster of emotions that I faced. And I tear up as I say this because it was truly like such a happy time, and I'm still just living off of this. But from this legendary bachelor week with all my best friends, we packed it in. We did so much fun stuff. I got to have all my favorite people in one spot. It was really cool. I got to watch my beautiful bride walk down the aisle. I got to chill out in Hawaii for a few weeks and not have to stress about CrossFit or posting or sponsors or clients and my company. And it's just a big blessing of month. You know, winning the games and having a wedding in the same month and a bachelor week. I mean, how can you beat that? That's why I say it's like, I don't know if I'll ever have a month like that in my life, and that's okay. If I peaked this August, that's awesome. The whole August month, as you can see, was very packed in. There was no days off of just, letting my brain sit till after the wedding was over, because there was so much planning to do too. So I think the wedding planning with Danica also really helped me understand the balance for, games training. I was able to have something else to focus on too, so I didn't get to talk about that we were planning a wedding throughout this entire year that was super fun and super cool to envision the future with her, and was a really exciting thing to balance training with. Mid-September rolls around, and we do another Reps Ahead Pro Force. This is my 4th Reps Ahead match in less than a year time span. And I obviously didn't train much over the bachelor week, the wedding period, the honeymoon. And so I came into this kind of blind, but then again, one lesson I learned early in the year is that sometimes my fitness can carry over even when I don't think it can. These Reps Ahead matches are the future, and I think that I'll be doing a lot more of them, and you'll be seeing athletes doing a lot more of them. So October, another crazy month. What were you expecting? The life is crazy. Now a married man, full of new adventures as a husband, and some more fun travel for camps and my family moving. October was very packed in. My dad and my brother and some of my best friends moved over to the Liberty Lake area where I now was established, and I couldn't have been more excited about it, and I couldn't be more excited about it today. This is still super recent for me, and it's crazy that my brother, my dad, my buddy Troy, Jason, my buddy Zach, and my buddy Jackson, we all live and train together every day, and it's such a dream. October was great for training, and I caught a sickness called pneumonia. You've probably heard of it. Never had it before. It was not fun. It definitely hit me like a truck. That 104.9 fever was not fun. Pretty much 6 sleepless nights. I had little glimpses of sleep, but the hot and the cold was really hard to deal with. I didn't know if I was going to be able to compete. I really couldn't even get myself off the couch, and I just felt a little helpless. So I had to wait till basically last minute to make a decision if I was doing this international big showcase of a competition with 9 events. I really wanted to prove to people that the games wasn't a fluke and that I was that fit. But I had a long way to come with my body, and I knew that I just wasn't primed or peaked whatsoever. I could barely get on a bike for 1 minute. If you ask my buddies, I would get on an echo bike and go at 50 RPM. If you've ever been on an echo bike, that's a joke of a pace for a guy my size. And I couldn't do it without getting off and absolutely hacking up a lung. I couldn't breathe. So it was a really hard thing to accept. And again, had to pray about it and understand what God's will was. And, I felt a sense of peace knowing I would be somewhat okay at Rogue. I knew that I wasn't. It was just unrealistic to think that I would have been peaked or had a chance at winning at that point. I was just really stressed about, would I even be able to do the workouts? Would I be able to complete workout 1 without just falling over and having to DNF, do not finish? I ended up being able to fully compete, accepting I was not going to be the same athlete I was at the games, which, like I said, tough pill to swallow, but was a very fruitful thing to just go out there and build my character. Not think about winning, but rather think about putting my best foot forward when I may not have much to give. And I think there's a lot of times in life people can relate to that. I don't have a lot to give right now, but can I just put whatever effort I have forward and see what happens. And that's what I did. Character building. It was about completing the challenge rather than winning the challenge now. So Scotland was awesome, and I look forward to many more Rogue Invitationals after this. So I came home from November a bit mentally exhausted. All I could think about was moving into a new house, which will also be on a vlog here. If you scroll through my YouTube channel, maybe we can give a reference to it, one of these links. But all I could think about was moving to this new house and starting life with my wife. No pun intended. But I just had to pull it back together for one final competition. I know we're not done competing yet, but we have just one more. It was another Reps Ahead showcase. So Reps Ahead Pro 5 was a tournament-style competition, and I was determined to make the end of my 2024 electric and go out with a bang. I ended up winning this tournament and felt pretty fully recovered from my sicknesses. I felt healthy, and it was a true blessing because pneumonia can take up to 6 months for some people to get out of your system and actually start working out again. For my dad, he went on a run after 4 or 5 or 6 months after pneumonia, and he was still coughing up blood, and he couldn't do it, so he had to stop. So obviously 2 weeks post-pneumonia going into Rogue, 4 weeks post-pneumonia going to Reps Ahead, feeling pretty much 100%. Was another miracle here. So I just want to shine light on all the miracles and prayers that were answered over my season. It's something that I can't even fathom. Summing up the year, roller coaster of emotions from start to finish. January to December, I competed in 8 in-person events over the year, which is the most I've ever done in a single CrossFit season. I experienced the highest of highs and some really low lows. But at the end of it, I came out stronger, wiser, and a much more confident version of myself. So the future is bright, and I look forward to taking what I learned from this year's experiences and making the next year better than the last. I made this video to show that the process and roadmap of becoming a champion is not easy. It won't be easy in the future either. To some, it may seem like a perfectly put together year on the outside. But deep down, the only reason I prevailed this year because I didn't lean into my own strength, but rather the strength of the Father who placed me here for big purposes and missions. There were many times I felt like quitting and giving up, thinking about the circumstances were too difficult, and I just couldn't keep going. But that is never the answer. The answer is leaning in and finding a way, no matter what the variables are. So I promise to those supporting me and my sponsors that my efforts will only to continue to get stronger. I'll only continue to grow, and I'll continue to pursue this competitive fitness industry with all my energy, whether that's High Rocks races, Ironmans, more CrossFit competitions, whatever it is. I'm going to put my 110% into it because there's always more to give. So thank you to everyone who made this 2024 season unforgettable. I surely won't forget it. Yay. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, that was like my first time I processed all this. Yeah, I just realized how crazy of a year it was. Like I was writing it up and I was like, man, like this is really cool. But then I was just realizing this is me. Like this is what happened to me, not just some guy I'm telling a story about. So it's, yeah, it's just a really cool thing to talk about. Thanks for capturing that. I appreciate it.